Hello everyone and welcome back to City Skylines 2, where we are building the sort of realistic North American themed city of Riverview and its surrounding metropolitan area. Now in the recent episode we upzoned a bunch of stuff throughout the metropolitan area to just bring in more people, supply more jobs, and in particular the job situation was kind of bad. We had about 5,000 unemployed people in the city, so we did a big expansion here to the south of East Riverview, building these office and industrial parks, Sterling and Barlow Bridge respectively, and combined they account for about 2,500 new jobs added to the metro area. This allowed us to bring the amount of unemployed down to about 3,000, which was very nice. I kind of ended that episode on a high note, but now everything has changed because apparently there's been a few new patches which has made my amount of unemployed citizens absolutely skyrocket by about 5,000 in total. So we're sitting at around 8,000 out of a population of 37,000, and we have to assume that like a subset of this population isn't in the working age. So this is pretty bad, and the reason is that I've just lost a bunch of jobs overnight due to the patch, which is kind of interesting. I guess they're still tweaking the simulation and whatnot, but it of course creates a bit of a problem for us. So naturally that's something we're gonna have to work to alleviate so that we create a thriving metro area and we don't bleed cash. But that's actually not gonna be the most important thing in this episode, because there is something else I want to develop. Now I'm gonna highlight a comment here. I get so many nice comments, input and feedback from you guys that it's overwhelming. I've said that before, but I want to highlight this one and I'm going to read it aloud. Am I the only one that noticed that there is an uninhabited island right next to the main island? And I was like, who's this guy? Whoa. What? Yeah, okay, I know that's not very funny, but you're not the only one who noticed this uninhabited island, because it's something you guys have been commenting on ever since the first episode with a ton of suggestions, and they seem to kind of split up into two camps. One camp wants this island to be heavily developed with high rises and dense, dense city, and the other camp wants it to be more of a recreational space. And some of you actually mentioned specifically fortresses, and the ferry wheel, and that is two things that I think would be a really nice fit in here, but perhaps also just adding the botanical garden to really create the recreational area. Now just a quick reminder before we get started: if you enjoy my content, consider liking and commenting on this video. It really helps out a ton. And if you want to make sure you don't miss out on future content, consider subscribing as well. The majority of my viewers aren't subscribed, so maybe you just forgotten to. Thanks in advance. So to start out on a high note here, I've named the island Love Island because it's shaped like a heart. It's a suggestion from one of you lovely folks. And I mean, the settlers here, they aren't all that creative anyways. Love Island fits quite well with Riverview, which isn't all that creative either. They established a city where there were good views of the river. And I mean, they even moved east across the river and established East Riverview, so I guess it kind of fits. So the very first thing we're going to have to develop is some infrastructure on Love Island. We are of course going to need to connect, and I'm thinking the city of Riverview, but also a connection from East Riverview. So we've got two bridges accessing the island across this western and eastern portion of these rivers here. And for East Riverview, I'm thinking we're gonna start the bridge here from the intersection of Olive Street and Summit Street, with Summit Street being the major arterial of East Riverview. It's relatively close to this crossing, this strait here, which is probably also the narrowest area that we can cross from on the eastern portion. Then I'm thinking that the main road of Love Island, and it's not gonna be like a huge boulevard or anything, it's just gonna be a 2-lane road or highway, is going to follow the coastline here along the northeastern portion. Then it's gonna turn left and follow the northern coastline, and then the crossing here where the strait is relatively narrow as well. will be into Riverview, and we're probably gonna cross just south of Riverview Central Station so that we connect up to Main Street in some way. I'm thinking of upgrading Coleridge Lane to an actual 2-lane street, and then just actually creating the bridge from this area here, because we're gonna need quite a few meters here to create a proper on-ramp that isn't too steep. But we're probably gonna have to elevate the bridge quite a bit so that we can pass the train tracks here at the Riverview Central Station. So that's the very first steps we're gonna take, just making sure we've got this all connected. Alright, so we've got a bit of a road layout here on Love Island. It's a little weird, and it's probably subject to change given that I don't really know the scale of the assets we'll be using, and I haven't really pre-planned all that much. But yeah, it looks sufficiently random, so I'm gonna stick with it for now. I also took the chance to do just some light terraforming to smoothen out some of the height differences here on the island, because it was actually quite hilly, and unfortunately Cities Skylines 2 handles hilly terrain about as bad as its predecessor, if not worse. Generally, assets just look pretty bad if you place them on steep terrain, so I'm hopeful we can alleviate that a bit by just making it a bit more smooth, as I've done. One of the most frequent suggestions for the island was to place a castle or a fortress here. And there is a pretty big medieval castle you can unlock through the tourist attractions, which is an unlockable it's something we could actually just buy now with our development points. I think the issue is that we are trying to build a North American themed metropolitan area here, so it's gonna be a little tricky to conjure the right historical context for a medieval castle, and this asset is absolutely huge as well, so it's gonna stick out, I think. We do, however, have something else that might just do the trick, because if we move up here on the northwestern outskirts of the city, we've actually got some castle ruins here that are a part of the map initially. And what we can do is we can relocate these. Now, they do have a medieval look, but I'm thinking, you know, it's a smaller asset. It is ruins, so that kind of covers up how it might have looked when it was new. And there's a bunch of trees here as well. So I'm thinking if we twist history a little bit, we can maybe imagine like a Civil War fort or something of the sort here. So we're gonna go with it, and we're gonna place it here on the southern tip of the island. Now, placing the Ferris wheel and the botanical garden is going to be a little more tricky, and I may just have to do a bit of additional terraforming to get it looking the way I want. But I mean, as long as we kind of maintain this super cute heart shape, then Love Island is somewhat intact, I would say. First up, I think I'm gonna buy and place the Ferris wheel, because it's just going to give us an idea of the scale, and we can always move it and adjust it. And it's gonna be the very same thing with the botanical garden. And yeah, spending 8 million credits at a time where I'm having a job crisis and a massive deficit is not a great fiscal decision, but anyways, deficit aside, I would like the Ferris wheel to be angled kind of parallel with the north and southbound roads of downtown. So you've got some pretty unobstructed views of downtown, while you can also, of course, see all the mountain ranges, all the natural landscape, and a good view of East Riverview as well. But that's probably not going to be feasible unless I do at least a bit of terraforming. So I'm just going to find the height I want, and I don't want it to be too tall. So I think we're going to right click one of the contour lines here, perhaps this one. And then we're just going to terraform this area so that I can make a small placement adjustment. Let's see how this will play ball. So I'll just place it here and do a little terraforming here as well. And I think I'm going to remove this road, because we might do something else entirely, actually. Whoops. Let's grab the Ferris wheel, and we've got free placement, of course. So let's see. If I want parallel alignment with downtown, we're looking at something like this. But that may be a little too close. We'll also need a small road to go in front of it, or at least a pathway. So maybe this is what we want. We'll just have a look. This is a pretty nice view, I feel. But of course, we'll have to change some road stuff, because I need the... Actually, now I don't really need a road to pass west of the Ferris wheel, which is pretty good. But we'll need to do a little change to this road just to connect it up. And maybe I should just come in with the soften tool here and soften the terrain a bit, because it looks a little too drastic here. And let's see, the botanical garden, I should probably try and align that a bit before I work too much on the road layout. I would like that to be, maybe it should just be right in front of the Ferris wheel as like a joint installation. We could try that. So to give that a shot, we're just gonna build a very basic alley road here. And then we're going to move. See, seems like this is perfect alignment. Oh yes, there you go. So that's actually one way we could do it. And I'm gonna come in here and do a little more terraforming as such. And then we'll of course need to connect up this road to this one down here, have a road go, let's see, north of the botanical garden as well, or maybe just connect up here through the southern edge of the garden. I'll try a few things with the road layout. And actually, I think I'm going to move the botanical garden to this side of Coleridge Lane as such, because then we can place one of these major large plazas we have, which aligns perfectly. Centered to the Ferris wheel, provides some pretty nice views of the city of Riverview and its skyline, so that's pretty cool. This open room here also leaves us a bit of space for the large city park. Now, one major annoyance I have with the game is that, and it feels like quite a regression from Cities Skylines 1. There's no... Why does it need a poop water outlet? There are no toilets here, right? Can you poop in the fountain, maybe? Anyways, I was complaining. There is no way to actually connect the pathways to the actual parks, so it's like a very restrictive asset, which is it's super annoying because it's almost as if the game actually recognizes the connection between the paths of the pre-made parks and then the ones you can place, but you're just not allowed to. So I'm hopeful it's something that they can fix, because that flexibility looks a little better, because the situation we're gonna end up having now is that this big plaza and this big park isn't actually connected to any of the pathways that I'm going to create surrounding them, and that is a little annoying. In conjunction with adding in the pathways throughout the park areas here in Love Island, I'm also going to be upgrading much of the street layout here to the highway type instead, so that, you know, the roads are going to be a little less bulky, and this weird thing here is going to be a little more interesting. It's still going to be weird, but nonetheless a little more interesting. And I'm probably also going to have to experiment with some pedestrian bridges, at least on this side here, because we've already got some highway segments here and they don't really allow for proper pedestrian access. So I'm going to be creating a pedestrian bridge here at alongside Admiral Bridge to connect the downtown of East Riverview to Love Island. And then, as I said, upgrade the road infrastructure throughout to highways. Before I do any of that, I just want to quickly place down a park maintenance depot, and I think this would be a decent enough spot. I think a building like this is a pretty good fit somewhere out here, because it's pretty much one big park, recreational area. We're gonna have some car traffic throughout, but this is an American city, so if you think we're gonna put pedestrians and, you know, I wanted to say cyclists, but that's not in the game. So if you thought we are going to put pedestrians first, then you're horribly naive, my friend. Cars first. Alright, so I think I'm going to wrap up the development of Love Island now, because we can continue spending more time here in the future, and especially some of the pedestrian infrastructure seems a little wonky, but at least I'm very happy to see it. Oh man, the Sims. Anyways, I'm happy to see it used, so I might revamp it in the future. It's a little wonky over here, but it's the first time really using it like this, so we'll see. Anyways, I think to encourage a little more tourism to Love Island, I am going to remove the parking fees from the parking lots we've got out here. I'm also going to be, let's see, I'll be, is it this one? Yeah, I'll be enabling the speed bumps policy for the district, so that even though we've got an interstate or just like a national road running through here, it should lower the speed of the vehicles. I'm primarily using this type of road due to aesthetic reasons, and not because I want people to drive 60 miles an hour here. So I'm gonna enable that as well. And then I'm thinking city-wide, I'm gonna try and enabling this city promotion, which through advertising should increase the metropolitan area's attractiveness, bringing in more tourists. And the downside is more crime around tourist attractions. So I'm gonna enable that, and then we'll see just how that's gonna work out, because if you guys remember, the only real pressing issue we have in the metro area is that we have quite a high crime rate. Everything else is actually pretty nice. Also, you may have noticed that I'm actually turning a tiny bit of a profit again, and I'm thinking it's because the simulation has sort of rebalanced after the changes. At least the unemployed in total numbers has decreased quite sharply, and that's because there's been like a rebound in the amount of jobs. So I'm thinking something got changed or tweaked in the recent patch, and as a result my city just had to kind of rebalance itself. I would say, with that said though, we've still got a bit of a job issue, because the unemployment rate is 22.5%, which is insane. It's way too high. So I'm definitely gonna need to have to increase this increase the amount of jobs. I meant, not the unemployment rate. So we're gonna go for a two-step approach. First is identifying some key areas where we can increase the job density of the metro area. We've got a few spots where we've got a little more parking lots than we need. I of course implement them for aesthetic and realism purposes as well, but in some points it's a little excessive. We've also got an empty space here in Bedford Gardens. If you guys recall, we did relocate the Riverview bus depot to Sterling in the previous episode, which left us with a bit of space to work with here. We've even got some parking and underutilized areas, I would say, in downtown Riverview, which we can probably start upzoning to get a more dense look here in downtown. We've got an area here where we got a surface parking lot, and I guess it's safe to say that by now we are kind of moving Riverview into a pretty dense area, at least the main city. So we are more, Boston, Philadelphia, and New York vibes, and not so much, Houston, Dallas, and surface parking in downtown. So I think it's fine if we remove some of the parking and start upzoning a bit. I think starting here in Bedford Gardens with just getting some office zoning down is like a quick little thing we can do that is going to at least be an immediate improvement. So I think I'm just gonna add a bit to the road network here though. The most simple basic form of detailing, which is just gonna be a few pathways here, just to kind of break up the area a bit, break up a few of the assets as well. So we'll do something like this. This should add a few nice jobs. And moving to downtown, one obvious thing we could do is remove this parking lots, and then we get a couple of different zones here instead. So let's go for some mixed housing here, and we'll do some row housing on the other side. Should be nice. We've got some stuff here that we can upzone, so why don't we actually go for a... let's see, can we go for a high-rise office here? I think we can. So I'm just gonna give this amount of space. Hopefully something will grow. And hit play to check. Oh yes, new skyscraper incoming. We are now in Cedar Brook, which is just northwest of downtown. We've got a few big parking lots that we're gonna remove. I think we'll be removing this one at least, as well as this one, just to make some extra space for office zoning. And we'll do like this. We'll just keep this parking lot. Moving further in the northwestern direction. Things are looking all right here. We've also got Mill Bluff, which is a small office park we built very recently, and it has our wastewater treatment plant, but it's also got these massive parking lots, which I think it looks good, but they are completely underutilized, so it's probably a little excessive. Removing both of them is going to allow for quite a bit of additional office zoning, so that should be very nice indeed. We might even extend the area to also move out here, and then we'll add our pathways for a tiny bit of detailing. So we've currently got around 18,700 jobs. It's going to be interesting to see where this figure is when we let all this play out. For our next moves, we're going to densify East Riverview a bit. So I think a good start is just to remove the surface parking here, and then going for some high density commercial zoning, as that's where the demand is currently. Adding this in, we've got some low density zoning here that I'll get rid of. Let's see, we've got a roundabout here, which I think is a little misplaced. Don't need too many roundabouts in my American city. This leaves a bit of space for additional zoning. Let's see, we'll go for some high density commercial and a mixed use. We've got some parking here, which is probably fine. Can I move it a little closer? Yes. And that actually opened up for a little row house as well. We've got Victoria Street here, which could be turned into a bridge crossing the interstate and connecting up with Linton Highway. So I think I'm going to do that, and then zone some commercial here alongside Victoria Street so that it's more of a commercial arterial actually. And this is also going to open up for more suburban developments here to on the eastern part of the interstate. Alright, so jobs are probably still filling in because I haven't let the simulation run for that long, but my guess is we've added anywhere from 3 to 4,000 jobs, and we've reduced the unemployment percentage by 7%, something like that, which is very nice. We're also seeing this reflected in our demand meters. We've got a pretty hefty demand for just about everything. So something I want to try is to build like a high-rise project of some sort. And we've got a spot here near Riverview College here in East Riverview where I want to try this out, I think. So to do this, I'm going to remove this road and a few of these houses. And then I think I'm going to demolish this entire row as well. We're gonna do a bit of very simple terraforming. And then just smoothing it out. And then I think I'm going to add like a small access road to this area. So we'll go 2 up and go in by 3. And we'll try and do the very same thing down here. As such. Alright. My plan is to then grab the low rent housing and add in the same zoning size and with about the same distance, and hopefully this is going to give us 5 completely identical low rent housing buildings, which is then essentially a housing project, and ideally I'd create a district on its own to really track it, but I don't think that's super necessary. We can, however, just add let's see, we can add a few. No, I'll keep this open space here as sort of a park landscape, because I think that's pretty realistic for many of these housing projects. To this area. There we go. Let's hit play and hopefully we'll get the exact same building here, and it's going to be quite a dense area because the low rent housing is pretty dense. It's very small apartments. I'm also building it to kind of try and alleviate the rental issues, or you know, the city just being too expensive. People have issues either paying rent or their mortgages. I don't think that the demographics that are pressured by high rent in their current house is going to move in here, but maybe it's good student housing. And they seem to be completely identical. With 48 households each, so I don't, as of now it's single people living here, but I assume that some of the apartments can have more than one person. We'll see, but anyways, it's quite a dense area on such a small amount of space. Also just gonna upzone a bit here near Riverview Central Gardens. We've talked about this in a few episodes, but I want the density alongside the small streets that kind of face the gardens to be quite dense, almost like a Central Park vibe, something like that at least. So we're gonna go for a high rise here. I've been asking you guys for suggestions and possible backstories for this Blackbird Terrace area for a couple of episodes now, and I've gotten so many nice suggestions that it's been very, very hard to choose some of them. So I'm gonna try and go with 2 at the same time, and I hope it makes sense to you guys. So the official name is going to be Bridgeway Gardens, and it's this suggestion here by Marius Bleak. So I'm just going to rename to Bridgeway Gardens, and you can read the backstory on the screen, hopefully. But that's the official name. The unofficial name that is used amongst most of the locals is the stairwell, and it's this suggestion here by Sundexkind Gaming. I hope I pronounced that correct. And I think it's pretty cool that it also has like an unofficial name for those in the know. Now, speaking of Bridgeway Gardens, or the more informal the stairwell, the local skate park is occupied by tents, homeless people basically. So the housing shortage is pretty severe here in Riverview, and the demand is just relentless. So why not wrap up the episode by some pretty large residential expansions? not necessarily the most the most efficient residential expansions, because I am going to build some single family housing, but I'm also going to upzone some of the inner city areas of East Riverview and Riverview to provide more medium density stuff. First, I'm going to create a low density housing here on the eastern portion of the interstate that runs alongside East Riverview, and then we're gonna move on to upzoning some of the areas here in East Riverview as well as the inner core of Riverview. And as we've seen so many times before, the metro area is now one big construction lot. So lots of row house zoning here in the southeastern portion of East Riverview. More when we move a little up Thornton Lane here. We've got some stuff up here as well. Squeezed in a bit of medium density as well, because this area is already quite dense with some public housing here. If we move across the rivers, I've upzoned a little portion of Bedford Gardens. It is very much an inner city area, so I can't have too much low density zoning here. At least I don't want to. Upzone some stuff in Palmer Glade as well, for the very same reason. The area is very similar to Bedford Gardens. Victoria Peak, we already upzoned this area to row housing in the previous episode, but now we are moving in here to add some medium density as well. And I hope that's gonna fill in a little better so that there isn't as sharp a transition from some of the high density commercial stuff we've got here on the northern portion of Madison Street, but that there's a bit of a more natural transition. So I'll get back to you when all this has grown and developed. I also added, I guess this is like, oh man, this isn't great. I wanted to add a small suburban subdivision development, but these houses are, I don't know. I wanted to use some European houses just to mix it up a bit, but these aren't great. And then I added a more traditional suburb here. Alright, so with our population having crossed 41,000 and still rising quite fast, as well as us having turned our financial situation around and now making healthy money each hour, I think we're ending this episode on a pretty good note. And of course, let's not forget that Love Island was developed. We might revisit it, make some tweaks in the future. Ooh, what has happened here? I hope someone... what? Oh man. What a life. Anyways, let's zoom away from that. The bridge here being heavily used by the super weird Sims. Oh, look at this guy, he's ripped. Damn. Actually, there are just a lot of fun, all the Sims here. And their teeth. and dogs. Oh, look at this Draco Malfoy guy. Wow. A lot of confidence in that walk, though. I like that. I like a confident walk. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. If you stuck with me this long, you probably need a bit of a break now. I hope you'll enjoy the final cinematics, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.